everybody, this is Troy coming at ya. This is Mission Stories. It's a podcast. And guess what? I'm alone. Just me. Just all by myself. No one else is with me. Lyndon, my typical co-host companion as we journey through our mission stories and discuss topical topics. He is not here right now. This is a bit of a special message situation, a special message episode. Everything about this is unique. It's all new. Nothing is the same. Nothing will ever be the same. Let me explain. We posted an episode earlier this week that we had recorded, and it contained stories from Lyndon's youth, which obviously involve his family, and the content of said episode got back to his family, and they decided, hey, that's our family story. We don't want it rolling around out there on the internet. But I think what we decided to do was to take it down out of respect for Lyndon's family. And so that's what we have done. So it is gone. It is in the ether. It no longer exists. It is permanently deleted. However, what you are about to listen to instead is episode 1 of a brand new podcast where myself, Troy Cooper, and my good friend Theo Gibb talk about films. We talk about a specific branch of the film tree, namely Mormon film. We know that there's a lot of movie podcasts out there, and Theo came to me with this idea where he's like, hey, I don't think anyone has had any desire to dive into Mormon films, and no one has really been crying out for it to happen. But I see that there is this gaping hole that I want to fill. That's what he told me verbatim. And so I said, Theo, let's do it. So this is going to be, what you're about to listen to is episode 1. We talk about a movie called The Singles Ward. Maybe you've heard of it. It's the 2002 classic. While everyone was like, ooh, Star Wars? Yeah, right. The Attack of the Clones? No thanks. I'd rather watch The Singles Ward again. Okay, those two movies came out in the same year. I'm rambling at this point. Enjoy the first episode where we take a deep dive into The Singles Ward, and also take this as an apology for the strangeness with the episode and taking it down. Here's something else in the meantime, and if you have interest, we will be posting more of this sort of episode on another podcast that you can listen to, and more details regarding that will come soon. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to it. We're trying to get it in more places. And thanks again for all the support we've received thus far. It's honestly been kind of heartwarming to hear everybody sort of say that they like it. So we'll keep doing it. And we'll see where it takes us. Probably nowhere. But we have fun doing it. So without further ado, here is episode 1 of a podcast Theo and I made called Of Good Report? ? And we talk about The Singles Ward. Enjoy.
Hi, welcome to Of Good Report, a Mormon film podcast. We're going to call it that? Is that a good title?
I was going to say, is that what the title is?
It's from the 13th Article of Faith.
It's from the Article of Faith. We're doing a podcast, Theo. My name's Troy.
Hi. Oh, yeah. My name's Theo.
And this is a podcast, and we're talking... What are we talking about, Theo?
Well, so I had this idea. I thought, you know what? There's a lot of podcasts about movies out there. But as far as I can tell, and I've looked sort of hard, there's no podcast about Mormon film. And I'm talking about films made by Mormons that, are just like for the general membership. I'm talking about films made by the church that you'll watch in seminary or at like the church history building or something. I'm talking about movies that culturally are important to Mormons, such as Nacho Libre or Elf. Those movies you're having a award movie night and it's like, well, what are we going to do? You just pull Old Reliable off the shelf. It's like, well, we can't go wrong with Emperor's New Groove. You know what I'm saying, Troy?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. See, I actually didn't realize that's sort of was going to be included in the scope of these films that we were going to discuss, or like culturally significant films.
Well, maybe just like for bonuses.
Yeah, okay. Because those are actually films that are like inherently good. When Theo came to me with this idea of we're really going to do a deep dive into the canon of Mormon cinema. And I just love my man Theo, so I was just like, more chance to hang out with Theo, great. But then I was just like, wait, dude, so we're going to have to watch these movies and we're going to have to talk about them. Well,
Troy, as it said, sacrifice brings forth the blessings of heaven.
Okay.
So yes, this is going to be. So we made a list of we just were like, let's just throw out 10 movies just off the bat and see like what we kind of come up with and if this would be something we'd want to do. And we realized within those 10 movies, there's quite the range of movies. We've got like the Singles Ward, which is the first episode. That's one we're starting with. The one that kind of started it all as far as your church balls and your home teachers and Baptists at our barbecue and those kinds of things. But you've also got like the old ones, Johnny Lingo, the 1967 one.
Cypher in the Snow. The story of a boy who dies from loneliness.
See, I haven't even seen that.
So you're going to love this.
I hope so. And or like, things like Saturday's Warrior, kind of these movies that our parents watched and quoted and got a lot of false doctrine from that made its way into Sunday school classes.
Theo, may I ask you a question?
Yes.
Is this specifically for Mormons exclusively, would you say?
Well, I don't want to limit our audience.
No.
And I know that looking for Mormons who are also interested in a podcast about Mormon film, it's a bit of an ask. It's quite the niche little target we're zoning in on here.
But we want all 18 of those people to be listening to this and enjoying our take on these films. Because I think it can have a wider appeal too. Certainly, my hope is that like from our discussions of these films, if you have seen it, you'll enjoy sort of reminiscing about it. And if you have not seen it, maybe you'll be like, I gotta check that out.
Yeah, and then
unless we say not to check it out.
As far as we know, we've only watched one so far, but none of them are grossly offensive. So you're not going to walk away from it like.
Not in the traditional sense, no.
We're not like watching some like Lars von Trier stuff or something. Well, we'll get there eventually, but so I think there's something to be gained, and I'm interested in film, though I don't know if I'd call myself a full like cinephile at this point. I still have a lot of movies I need to watch.
I would say you are.
No, because if someone asks me like, "What are your favorite films?" I'm not like, "Oh, this Japanese filmmaker." Like I don't have that.
Don't you have like an obscure? Who's your obscure pull? Do you have like someone who you're just like, "This is my guy"? Am I putting on the spot?
No, I would say like probably the most obscure movie or director I like is Iannucci. I don't know his first name. See, I'm not even. But he does the movie Four Lions, and he just came out with a movie called Death of Stalin. I really want to see.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of does like these dark comedies, somewhat historical.
Yeah, no, I want to see that. I saw the trailer for that.
Regardless, I don't know. Like neither. I'm an engineer, like a STEM guy. I'm not like an artist or something. But I still am interested in movies.
Yeah.
Because I see movies as like this intersection of technology and art and business, and it's like I could go on forever about why I love movies.
Gets it jazzed up.
But when you get to these Mormon movies, I think there's kind of a really interesting dynamic between some of them, like the Singles Ward type movies. They're like pure indie films because a lot of them are done by this Hailstorm Entertainment Company, and that's like the creator that's doing these movies. So there's no studio executive coming in and meddling. But on the other side of the coin, you have the ones that are done by like the church itself. And those are really interesting because they are not like calling the church studio meddling, but like they're definitely tightly controlled. And it's interesting to see what goes into that final product as opposed to these, what really are pure indie films.
Yeah, I would say that the church films are the analogous, like, those are the films that are like very tightly controlled, they have the message that they want to tell, and they make sure that everything in that stays on message and stays on point. As opposed to what we just watched, which is
which they're not showing this in the church visitor center anytime soon.
You know what though, and we'll get into this. So maybe what we should do is introduce our first film that we're going to be diving into. It's called The Singles Ward. It's directed by... Do you have the director?
I do. So this one's directed by Kurt Hale. And so if you've ever watched one of these like Baptists at Our Barbecue or Mobsters and Mormons type movies, they all say at the beginning, Hailstorm Entertainment. It's got like a cool little hail pellet. I don't know what you call that. Hailstone, I guess. Oh, yeah. Zooms across the screen. And so that's this Kurt Hale. That's his production company. Now, he doesn't have a Wikipedia page. So we have his IMDb, so we can kind of look at all the movies he's done. But for this one, it was he wrote it along with a guy named Kurt Hale. Here, I've got John Moyer. Sorry. So here's Kurt Hale's filmography: The Singles Ward, The RM, It's Latter-day Night, live comedy. We'll put that on the list. The Home Teachers, Mobsters and Mormons, Latter-day Night Biscuit, Suits on the Loose, Howdy Town Volume 1, Church Ball, The Singles Second Ward.
Oh.
And I've never heard of the rest of these. It looks like a lot of shorts, and he's producer on them.
Okay.
So
he's pretty well known.
I guess he's done a lot of things here. So, so the interesting story about this movie, I think, is from the screenwriter, along with Kurt Hale, John Moyer. And so on Wikipedia, actually, it talks about his career. And it says that he first attempted stand-up comedy when he went to an open mic night at a comedy club in Provo, Utah. And he just decided to get on stage. And then, so he said that basically all his friends were out getting degrees and going to MIT and stuff. And he's like, all I can really do is this comedy thing. So he starts doing that. But then apparently he got married and then got divorced. And so he wrote this script about a divorced Mormon trying to make it as a stand-up comedian. And so he said that he wrote this script just for himself, never thought it would see the light of day, kind of just threw it on the shelf. Yeah. It's kind of like a catharsis for him. Mm-hmm. So I think that's kind of like an interesting little backstory to this, and it totally makes sense with what we see in the movie, a movie about a struggling stand-up, well, not really struggling, but a stand-up divorced comic in the church.
Yeah, that's exactly the plot of the film. So this is autobiographical, this film.
In a way, yeah.
I had no idea. Does he get remarried? And spoilers for this film to follow.
Yeah, so maybe go watch out.
If you don't, spoiler alert, it's a basic romantic comedy. So, do we know about his personal life? Does the real guy get married again?
I don't.
Is Cammie Giles a real? Does she have like a real comparative person in real life?
I don't see that he got married again. He's got an official website, and apparently, right now, okay. Oh, here's something. It says that he wrote a short script based on observations made during his own divorces, some short called Disjointed Custody. So I think that he's kind of been in and out of various marriages. It says he's a comedy hypnotist from 2012 onwards. He's got
the best kind of comedian.
Yeah, he's got an official website. Hypnotist John Moyer. This is johnmoyer.com.
Okay.
We got some white-on-white font. Oh, no, it's just loading. Oh, look. I don't know if you can come see this. Look at this guy. He's he's a guy.
Wait, so this is the screenwriter.
This is the writer, yeah.
And Kurt Hale is
the director.
The director.
And so they co-wrote it together.
They co-wrote it. So which one is this supposed to be after?
This is about John Moyer, the writer. Yeah. Okay. I don't have a lot of information on the screenwriter or on the director, but I'm sure we'll get into him when we do the RM.
This film came out in 2002.
Correct.
Which means it was filmed, presumably. Do we know when it was filmed, or do we just...
I know some things about when it was filmed. I know, based on the IMDb trivia, what they were filming on September 11th. So that's going to be some fun context.
Okay.
But I don't see when the production was going on.
Okay.
It was released on the beginning of February, basically. 2002.
So in bringing that up, the first thing that I notice about this film is its age. Like, the first thing that jumps out to me is that this is a time capsule of a film.
Oh, it is such a time capsule.
It captures this very specific time in probably, like, it felt, because the movie feels kind of a TV style.
Yes.
You know, it has, even the way that it's structured is episodic. You know, at times it's sort of sketch-like.
Yeah, it's like, you know, they had all these ideas and they're like, well, I want to do something, like, I've always thought it would be funny to have this happen. Okay, well, we'll throw that in right here. And we'll, like, kind of jump around to that.
Yes. There's moments where, yeah, exactly. They were like, I've been sort of sitting on this idea for a while, and now that we're going to make a movie, can we please put two cops, you know, running around doing like a fake cops type show? Which is like a weird subplot. It's not even a plot. It's literally just like a sketch, just like a left turn sketch out of nowhere.
It's kind of like happens twice.
Yeah.
And then never again.
Yeah.
Like, there's not really a setup. There's a setup and kind of payoff, but it's not like, you know, it doesn't follow rule of threes or anything.
I think it's funny, actually. I think those scenes are actually some of my favorite in the film. But the film as a whole, yeah, you're right. It doesn't really benefit from it. So yeah, it's got like an old style, like literally the clothing style that we're seeing here is like it really late 90s. I wonder if it was, so it filmed during 2001, the September 11th attacks. They were filming on that day.
One of the scenes was filmed that day. And in the trivia, it says that you can notice that the actors are a bit subdued.
Which scene?
It's the one where Zach is getting arrested, where they think the two guys are missionaries.
Oh.
Or he thinks they're missionaries,
right, yeah.
and they, like, apparently everyone on set was having a hard time,
yeah.
and it's, like, noticeable. I didn't notice that till after. I was like, oh, that was the scene. I thought it was a different scene, so I wasn't fully paying attention, but...
Well, it's a bit of a somber scene anyway.
But, you wouldn't really expect it to be somber, because it's kind of like, I'm getting arrested for bungee jumping my car.
Yeah. The film is so wacky, too,
it's
by the way.
some hijinks in this thing.
Throughout the film, you just expect, you know, the Seinfeld, to start playing. Because there's so many, like, throwaway... You know,
I love that you did the whole. You didn't just do like. You like did the whole theme song right there.
I was considering whether I should keep going with it or not.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's sort of like my initial takeaway from this film is just that, like, it's so late 90s. The haircuts for the girls are very. I don't know what you call them. Is it like the
I think, like, now it's called, like, the "Can I talk to the manager" haircut, kind of. But, like, back then it was just the standard haircut,
Did you ever see this movie? What was her name? It was about this girl who, like, Paul Walker and Freddie Prinze Jr. were in it, and they were trying to bet to see if they could make this sort of homelier girl look hotter for prom or something like that. She's All That.
Okay.
It's called She's All That.
Yep.
And the main actress in that film has this haircut. And everyone in this movie has that haircut. And it's from like 1998 or something.
Okay, so that's the time period that you're saying. This is like, and it's weird because, you know, they talk about like, oh, millennials and Generation Z or whatever are so nostalgic. And it's because like from 1990 to 2010, technology and fashion and everything changed so rapidly that it's like, oh, I have nothing to really call my own because everything changed so much.
Yeah.
And it's like, this movie is a perfect slice of like 1998 to 2003, basically. Like, that's kind of the clothing, the outfits they're wearing, they're definitely more modest, but it's like, if you open up a For the Strength of Youth pamphlet to the modesty page, and I'm not knocking it right now, I'm saying like that the tan pants and the button-down shirts untucked over the belt kind of thing. The polo shirt with the undershirt kind of like that is the combo.
It makes you wonder as well, like, when they were making the For Strength of Youth pamphlet, they probably just took a camera and like went to like some places and were just like, what are the kids wearing these days? Like it's this feedback loop that like the church was sort of taking it from them and they're taking it from the pamphlet, but it's like this feedback loop.
But at the same time, as like a lot of the stuff is clearly dated in this movie, pagers, Palm Pilots, things like that, there's some parts of it that are still so shockingly relevant that it was kind of, I was like, wow, this is YSA. Like the culture of YSA hasn't changed a lot. Yeah. So it's like, we make fun of the technology, but it definitely nailed a lot of the tropes of YSA, if you will.
They did. They really did. I thought the dance scene.
Oh, the dance was like triggered PTSD in me.
Yeah.
Like just some of the conversations happening. I was like, that's like what I grew up with a little bit.
Yeah. I thought it was a great encapsulation of the weirdos, the freaks and weirdos that just inhabit your typical YSA dance.
And it wasn't like too over the top for the kind of weird guys. It was like everything was like, like I knew a guy like that. Yeah, that's kind of
What's funny is that, like, I think when I first saw this movie, I was not in YSA. I was...
Yeah, let's talk about that. Where did you see this movie the first time?
I saw this movie... It was at home. I mean, like, we watched it on... Just today, Theo and I watched it on the DVD that my parents had... Or my mom, I'm sure, was the one who bought this. So I watched it when we got it. Probably around 2003 or 4, like, shortly after the film came out. And actually, no, I would have been like sort of an older teenager, maybe like 15, 16, which was in 2005 or 6 sort of thing. So not too much after it was made. But I remember thinking it was funny at the time, but like the extra, 10 years in addition to that have really made me feel like, wow, this is a slice of time. I don't remember having strong feelings about the film. I remember when I watched it, I was like, man, they got like the one most handsome guy in the world to play the lead, and then they
you got a crush on Will Swenson there?
I did, yeah, I still do, and and then everyone else is just like they went to a local Walmart in Provo and were just like, hey, you want to be in a movie?
Jeez, dude.
I feel like the discrepancy between the looks of the lead and everyone else. The lead actress is good looking. Those two, but even her, she's got he looks like he's gonna be a movie star. And was he in the Tom Hanks directed film about the Wonders or whatever?
Who, Will Swenson?
Yeah. Was that guy?
I'm looking at his filmography right now. What movie is
That
this?
Thing You Do. That Thing You Do.
No, it wasn't in That Thing You Do.
He's got to have been. I swear that's him.
Nope, not seeing it.
Oh, no.
So, yeah.
No, I swear it's that same guy. I've got to look this up, Theo. I feel like I'm right.
Okay, while you're looking that up, I'll share about my experience with this movie.
Yes, please.
So I feel like I watched this shortly after it came out. Like, I was young. I was young enough that the boing sound effects and stuff that get played were funny to me and stuff like that. And I feel like it was someone in my family, like one of my mom's sisters or someone, I guess that would be one of my aunts, would be my mom's sister.
Right. Yeah.
Was like, hey, check this movie out. It's really funny. And then we all watched it. And like, it's funny watching this now. I realized how many jokes I built into my Mormon identity I cribbed from this movie.
Right. Yeah.
Like there's a part of this movie where he's like, they make a big thing about he's going to Boise, Idaho. And everyone's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And like, I remember as a teenager, when people would ask me where I wanted to go on my mission, I would say Boise, Idaho, because I thought that was funny.
Right.
Like, I literally said that up until I got my mission call. They'd be like, where do you want to go? I was like, Boise, Idaho.
Where did you serve your mission?
Colorado Springs.
Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I served my mission in Atlanta, Georgia. or the roundabout.
So there's our credentials for you.
We are Mormon, and we know a thing or two about it.
We do.
We know less about. Well, we're not. We're just we're just fans of film, and but.
And I feel like we don't want to. This is kind of more meta here. I don't want to like crap on these movies. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many movie podcasts and things that just go out and they're like, all right, well, this is a plot hole and stuff. And it's like, we can get into that, but I don't want this to be like a we hate movies kind of thing. It's so annoying.
Here's my thing.
Okay, we'll be honest if we have to.
I'm just going to be honest about it. And I do have good things to say about this movie.
There you go. So we're not going to be super cynical and negative.
I thought going into this movie that I was going to be crapping all over it. Just because I was like, this movie, these movies, and I thought that like the value of this podcast would be in us crapping on these movies.
Well, we'll see.
But here's I liked it.
I liked it too.
I thought it worked for the most part, actually, more than I remember it actually.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let's jump in and maybe talk about some of these. What's this movie? How do we start? Let's kind of start, and we can talk about some actors as we go through it.
So, maybe let's talk about like. Sorry, guys, I got a package of
Troy
Gushers.
Really wants to eat some Gushers right now.
I'm really into Gushers lately. Really into nostalgia.
I was going to say another 90s.
Yeah, Dunkaroo.
The Kool-Aid Man's coming through your window.
Oh, yeah.
Some assembly required.
Yeah. Or those Stretch Armstrong things, or like Hulk Hogan. Did you ever have one of those? I feel like that's before our time.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
I feel like what I had, I think I had one of those, but they were, anyway, from a garage sale. So this movie, we're talking about The Singles Ward. The basic premise is that it's about the stand-up comedian who was married, just like the writer, Jonathan Moyer. Is that right?
Yes.
And then, so the opening shots of the film, and I think this is wise that they do this. It's a lot of like to the camera, fourth wall breaking narration.
First off, we got to talk about the opening credits.
Okay.
The opening credits,
right, yeah.
Because first off, it starts out, and I didn't realize this before, but the title wipes and stuff, it's like, in association with LDSsingles.com. So I guess they sponsored this movie or something. I want to know more about that arrangement.
Do you want to know what's funny?
What?
I was on LDSsingles.com.
Oh, no. I mean, look, I don't want to stigmatize anything, so excellent.
So you were never on it?
Okay, I had Mutual once upon a time.
Right. That's a recent thing, though.
That's recent.
Yeah.
That's... Who used online dating? I guess you did.
I did, Theo. I used it.
And no offense to anyone who does use that or did use that.
No, honestly, it's not a good site. It's really not a good site. Mutual has filled this massive hole in the Mormon dating community, and
or has it blown a massive hole in the dating community by poisoning the culture?
Okay,
tuning it to a sense of disposable relationships.
Yeah. It's true. Well, I mean, society was headed in that direction anyway, and we're just like, hey, let's make a Mormon version of it. Kind of like our
podcast.
This podcast. Yeah. So, I remember going on Mormon LDSsingles.com or whatever, and I don't know, it was just a very sad experience, because it's just like, I don't know, the people, I'll be careful, but, it's just like a bunch of, no one's happy. No one goes on a dating site because things are going really well for them.
Whoa, this is a scorching hot take here.
You know what I mean? It's true, though. You're not like, things are going really well, I'm going to sign up for LDSsingles.com. I can say this because I was one of those people. Have things improved for me?
I'll take that as an eh.
You are married, Theo.
I am.
You did not use a dating site to get married, though.
That is true.
You just went out in the real world and went to a singles ward and found a woman, and now you're happily married.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a movie about someone who did that, and then it went horribly wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So in the there's a lot to unpack here, because in the first moments he's like, got married, did everything I was supposed to do.
Oh, sorry, I feel bad going back, but you skipped the fact that the opening credits are done in a scrapbook.
Right.
But sorry, keep going.
No. We can do that. We can go back to that. No, it's kind of Napoleon Dynamite. I wonder.
Oh yeah.
I wonder if. Well, no, because Napoleon Dynamite is plates of food.
I don't even remember the opening credit. I'm impressed that you do remember the opening credits
but it's
to
similar.
Napoleon Dynamite.
Well, they were very, it's plates of food and with people's names sort of written. It's very cool. This, I think, came out before Napoleon Dynamite, but one has to wonder, because Jared Hess,
yeah,
he's a Mormon.
He's a Mormon.
He 100% saw this movie and was like, I like that. I'm gonna switch it up a little bit.
That. All right, so that is now canon. Jared Hess cribbed.
Jared Hess is a thief. Just gonna burn some bridges here.
Yep. But yeah, sorry. Go back to the interesting opening because it is interesting.
Yeah. So they taught like within the first minutes we're setting up, and I applaud the story for this. I mean, I've heard that like narration in and of itself is sort of a lazy storytelling mechanic, and even like to the camera is even one step further.
Right. This movie breaks the fourth wall. It does the Ferris Bueller Deadpool, which is rated R. I haven't seen it.
I have not seen it.
And it does that thing where they talk to the camera.
Funny. Yeah. Yeah, and so he's talking to the camera and he's telling his whole life story about how he went on a mission and he went to BYU and he was doing everything he was supposed to do. And he met like it was like a non-Mormon, right? Mm-hmm. She gets baptized. They get married. And then the gag that they show is that like, he opens up the fridge and there's a bunch of beers in it. And then he kind
of does the thing where he's like, I don't know what I want. Closes the fridge and then it's like, record scratch.
Yeah,
like, wait a second.
The first of many. I love the comedy style in this because it's so like it is sitcom-y,
It's very earnest.
Yeah.
It's like, and I'll talk about this later, but in my opinion, comedy changed after 9/11. And I know my wife just, if she's listening, let out an audible groan and turned off the podcast at that because she doesn't like that theory of mine. But it's like you look at comedy movies from before 9/11 and ones after it, and there's such a like, madcap kind of slapstick. This is just silly and we're having fun. And then it's like afterwards, it's like everything's dark and cynical and like Minority Report,
That's
War
so
of the Worlds.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like movies just got darker and it affected comedy as well, in my opinion.
That's interesting. I had noticed it in films generally, more in hindsight. Like at the time, I didn't really realize, but looking back, you're totally right. There's a lot of like 9/11 influenced films that sort of try to capture that fear and that sort of sense of dread that came over everybody at that time.
And it's not necessarily just like the action movies. Like you think of movies that came out in the 90s that are the funny movies. They're like Dumb and Dumber and like Ace Ventura, kind of like these Jim Carrey movies where he's just like, wah, wah, and making sound effects when he whips out his arms and stuff. And it's like, what movies, sure, they exist, but they definitely weren't as big of a thing.
It's true. Yeah. It just, I don't know. Comedy's weird like that, where it's so of its time. Like comedy has such a short shelf life, I find.
Sometimes, yeah.
I think the principles of comedy sort of stay true over the long term, but I don't know. It's like you watch something from like the 60s. I watched this movie or part of this movie with my parents, In Like Flint. I don't know if you've seen this.
Okay.
James Coburn. Basically, it's a James Bond parody. It's the original Austin Powers, basically.
Okay.
Like Austin Powers basically copied In Like Flint. But In Like Flint is the least funny film, and it's just so horribly politically incorrect and inappropriate as per the 60s. But just watching it today, it's just like they just didn't understand timing or something. Like it was incredible.
Like because I don't remember. Like I thought it was funny as a kid. I don't know if the adults around me were like laughing at every joke in this, or if they also didn't really land.
Yeah.
So I don't remember that, but maybe they did.
Here's the thing. I think a lot of the jokes in this movie do land, actually.
And they still do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was laughing at various parts. Yeah. And not like a laugh like, this is so dumb, but like that's genuinely funny.
Some of it was, this is so dumb.
Yep.
I have my complaints. We'll get to those in a bit. But I think back to the original point it was just like they're setting up this story to kind of like the whole thing becomes a bit. It's all framed through this morality tale.
Yes.
Thing.
Yes.
You know, it's not just, it truly is like this is like the fight for good and evil sort of a thing.
Right.
It's this guy and he's fighting for like, do I believe in this or what do I believe? Or, you know, he's inactive and he, you know, his beliefs, he doesn't want to be told. They don't really get into like what he believes or doesn't believe, but his whole issue is like, I don't want to be told what to do.
So,
or like,
so what you're saying is it's kind of like a secret Western.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's like, you know, Billy the Kid. He doesn't want to be told what to do.
No, I take that back. That was just
just
messing around here.
Cut it out. We'll bleep all of that. You just you hear this like solid 1 full minute of bleep on the podcast. Why didn't they just cut it out? Anyway, so yeah, I don't know. I just like, and I get you mentioned this that like they needed to have a story.
Yeah, you can't have a movie that's like, let's just make fun of, like, there's parts of this movie that it felt like they'd taken a spreadsheet and they'd just written down every Mormon stereotype and joke that they could, and we're like, all right, how do we fit this all in?
Yeah.
And then it was like, well, we need like a through story to go with this. And I don't even think the through story is that bad. Like, it is kind of interesting. And I think that it's done mostly good. Yeah. And you're kind of watching this like, yeah, this is a good story. But there's parts of it that feel like, okay, they just had this idea and they thought it was really funny and they wanted to put it in.
Yeah.
And it doesn't affect anything, and that's just how it is.
One of my complaints for this film is that I think there's too many montages.
Oh, there is montages to be had.
Off the top of my head, and I wish I would have counted them officially, but I think there's about 8 montages in this film.
That
about
sounds
like
right.
6 to 8. Like, I just cut to the thing. Like, they'll be like, we got to get to the airport. And then there's literally like a 5-minute montage of them like wacky driving and things like that. And I feel like that's very much of the time. I feel like if this were made today, they would probably just cut to them in the airport or something, you know? Let's just get to it. Because a lot of those gags and those laughs, I feel like they're from a bygone time, you know? Just that sort of like the wackiness. Like, films are less wacky today.
That's right. Yes.
And they're more surreal. I feel like they lean more into, which is strange. It's a weird line, but I think it's clear in this film that like the wackiness, I don't know. It's almost like it's trying to be like, funny instead of weird.
One thing I'll say too is that they're making a movie for like YSA, but also it's like we want people to be able to bring their kids to this movie, and maybe their kids will have something to laugh at. Yeah. Like, maybe that's part of it, is that some of these things I thought were funny as a kid, and maybe my parents didn't, but that's okay, because it's like he's doing a weird thing where he's trying to entertain the kids too. Yeah. At the adult movie, which is kind of like admirable, because you don't see that in a lot of movies.
And I think he does. I think you're very right, and I didn't take that into account actually, because there are some like the wacky juvenile things. I'm just like, okay, but like I'm sure a kid would love that.
Yeah, so maybe that's what it is.
Yeah,
you shouldn't be so hard on it. So
the thing is though, a lot of the basic premises of this movie is that being in the young single adult ward is a weird experience, and you're surrounded by a lot of weird people. Right. And I really didn't get that upon my first viewing, as I said, because I was just a teenager and I didn't really have a taste of what it was like to be in a YSA ward. But now, after having spent a considerable amount of time in young single adult wards, I see these things and I'm just like, yeah.
You're like, I have been in that room watching a movie when an inappropriate part came on, and I had to awkwardly slink in my chair and be like, okay.
I had to audibly voice my displeasure with this isn't right.
Yeah. You know? But I don't know where the remote is, so we're just going to have to.
We're just going to watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure the sex scene will be done very soon. This is a tasteful movie, okay? They're not, it's just going to like fade to black, Yeah. Top Gun style. Wait, I I don't remember that movie well. I swear they just fade to black.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Or like the dance, even. Just the
dance.
stuff there. But like, so getting into it, the movie starts out, and it's Will Swenson, who very handsome dude, like you mentioned.
Handsome. I thought it was this guy. I don't know if you can see this, but
Jonathan Shate. I've never.
I think they look similar.
Okay, they kind of do. Will Swenson, who was a member, currently not practicing anymore, actually recently had a credit on Greatest Showman.
Cool.
He's Hugh Jackman's dad at the beginning. He's P.T. Barnum's dad. So you can see him there. And I was looking him up just out of curiosity to see what he was doing nowadays. And I found on Wikipedia that he, in 2018, played Satan in the off-Broadway production of Jerry Springer, the opera, which I will can kind of describe. I don't know. It's the music contains irreverent treatment of Christian themes, extensive profanity, and surreal images, such as a troupe of tap-dancing Ku Klux Klan members.
Oh.
So,
wow.
He's doing that. So good for Will Swenson, I guess.
When they leave, they really leave, don't they?
He went out. So next time you see the singles ward, that's
think of that.
Where are they now? He had the most interesting post-career from this that I've seen. The only other interesting tidbit is that Cammy, the girl who's going to call him when we get to that point in the plot in 30 seconds, she starred in the movie Troll 2, which is often considered the worst movie of all time. It's become like a cult favorite now.
Oh, so that's great. Good for her. Good for Cammy.
Yeah.
Cammy Giles character.
Movie about vegetarian trolls that was supposed to be a movie called Goblins, but they wanted to make it a sequel to a movie called Trolls, even though it had nothing to do with it. Anyways, some fun trivia for you there. Movies. Weird things in the studios get involved.
Yeah.
But he's laying in bed, and what happens?
He gets a phone call, and this, it's all so 90s. He's just in bed, like this old 90s alarm clock is like, meh, meh, and then you get like a phone call from the 90est phone you've ever seen.
Yep.
And then it's like a speaker. He's got a speaker phone, and it's a landline. Like you just don't see that in films anymore.
But it is cordless.
It is cordless, so it's like way ahead of its time.
Yes.
There's a woman on the phone, and she's like, "Hey, it's the new activities coordinator. You're a stand-up comedian, right? Can you do your stand-up comedy for the talent show?" And he's like, "What are you?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm a nurse." She's like, "Why don't you come and like clean the crap out of my bed, okay?"
He's like super rude to this person who he doesn't even know, who's ultimately just calling him to ask if he wants to like. I know the whole like, oh, you get paid and exposure thing, like that's super dumb, and artists have to deal with that stuff all the time. But it's like she's just asking him to come like do a routine for a church, and I get that he's frustrated with it. But
the thing that I wrote in my book here is he's a dick.
Troy,
in this moment. So
we're trying to be a little.
We're not saying.
We're going to say that's a garbage word on this podcast.
Okay, all right.
You can say crap.
This isn't Mission Stories. I can't say dick.
I don't know. I just want to have I don't want. At this point, we've had 30% turn off at the
at the LDS
the diversions to blast. That, and we just lost like 20 more people.
Oh, I'm sorry. Theo's wife and family, and future children.
Yeah,
and any future children that I have.
It'd be fun if they dug this up as part of their family history research.
I hadn't even thought about any of that when I started doing podcasts. But, hey, children, how's it going?
Yep,
it's me, your future father, present father.
How's President Kanye?
Yeah.
Topical. All right. Anyways,
we do topical humor for like the future.
Yeah. So I do have to make a comment on this too. It's pretty bold of her to be like, "Hey, he's a stand-up comedian that doesn't go to church. Let's have him come do a set for the talent show." Like that is a pretty bold.
Yeah.
I don't want to like. I don't know who would ever end up hearing or listening to this, but I've been in a couple stand-up situations at ward activities in YSA
that were
not great.
No.
that really,
Oh, they're the
on some
worst.
cases, either they like crossed lines where it was uncomfortable,
Yeah.
or the person started bombing and it was like, okay, I don't want to like make fun of you because you're like a friend of mine, but I genuinely just feel bad because
Yeah.
no one's laughing and I'm trying to give you everything I can, but
Did you see the one? I'm not going to say names.
Okay.
I'm not going to say names. I wanted to say his name so bad. I showed a great deal of restraint. Theo.
excellent work.
There was one guy in the Calgary YSA who he said the F word in his. Were you there for this?
I was not there for this.
You know
but
about
I heard
this,
about
though.
this.
Yeah. He's telling his whole bit is about like, boy, Mormons sure are afraid of swearing. It's almost like you're gonna, melt if you hear the word. And then he says the F word.
What?
I think I burst out laughing.
Well,
Sort of
comedy is all about shock
sort
and
of
surprise.
It was like the meta laughter though. It's like he said it, no one laughed, and then I laughed at no one laughing.
Yeah.
It was one of those things. So you're so right. Like, how dare in the movie this girl? She's like, come and do some comedy. Obviously, she had never seen stand up done at a church activity before.
Right.
know how awful it is.
Kudos to her for really reaching out to say, what does this guy do? He does this. Let's get him to do that. Kudos to her.
You know what I want more of, Theo? I wish there was more comedy nights at these YSA things.
There's
They would be bad, but I think they'd get better. Like give people a chance to improve.
there you go. That's a kind take right there. I like that. Got to give people a venue, and it's got to like at least at church. There's trust there.
Yeah.
Where it's like no one's gonna. Hopefully, if we're being righteous people, we're not gonna trash people behind their back.
I don't know.
If they say the F word, I'm gonna trash you behind your back.
And on the podcast as well.
Yes.
It was just bad move, man. Bad move.
Okay.
We'll move on from this.
Yeah. How long? What are we at now?
We've been going for about 40 minutes.
Okay. We'll move forward a little bit. We've done the first 30 seconds of the movie. So okay. So then
We're gonna
we
get
have...
through it so quick. I have another comment
Okay.
though. It's just because right at the beginning of the movie, I just noticed like you said, they had this spreadsheet of like everything that was Mormon that they're just like packing into the movie as fast as they could. And I was just like, wow, there's so many references, just like
Yes.
constantly.
It's like the Ready Player One of Mormonism.
Yeah. I haven't seen it, but I've seen the trailer, and
Okay.
boy, oh boy,
honestly,
references.
good movie.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I liked it. It's got like a meta commentary on references themselves. So look, you can always bet on Spielberg. Okay.
Always bet on Spielberg.
That's my coldest take.
Yeah.
No one disagrees with that.
Steven Spielberg, good director.
Yep. Wow. Really.
Controversial.
So yeah, they crammed all this stuff in, and they do it right
on.
from the opening. After he finishes saying this super kind of like vaguely misogynist thing to her about giving him a foot bath and feeding him tapioca pudding, he's like, I had this life. I was once an Elders Quorum president, but now, I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
But I have the experience, so I'm like a spy on the inside.
Yeah.
And it shows various people trying to get him to come to things, and all his excuses. Someone's like, "We've got some paintball going on this weekend. We want you to be there."
Yeah. And there's some jokes here, and I think they work. He's like, I am a convicted felon. I'm not sure if I can,
That actually is
handle
funny.
a weapon. Funny joke.
Yeah.
And that's
I'd have to talk to my probation officer.
Yeah. Here's my thing. He's really good, I think.
He is. He does great with what he's given.
He's like a very charming guy. Again, very handsome. And so those are some good jokes. And he's got some good jokes. And he delivers them well. Did this section rub you the wrong way a little bit? I just didn't like, I don't know, there was just something about the like, I just hate that like screw you attitude of like, I used to be a part of this, but now I'm not.
Well, it's part of the character. Like,
guess,
he does have an arc through the movie that he changes that and kind of
guess so.
acknowledges that, like, that's him kind of being a jerk.
Yeah.
And look, if we're really looking at this character, I can see why someone like that would be a little bit jaded.
Yeah.
Because he's like, he did
Fair
everything,
enough, yeah.
did everything right, and then he his wife was a convert, and then she decided, I don't want to be a part of the church anymore. And then she left him, and he like tried to make it work. But yeah, that'd be rough to go to a family ward by yourself. And definitely, and probably more so back then. I don't know if we've gotten better, but like there can be a bit of it would be rough to be a divorced member. I don't have that experience. I'm not trying to like take away from someone who does, but like that would suck and definitely make you not want to go and make you bitter and resentful.
So we're probably supposed to feel like, yeah, this guy's rubbing me the wrong way. You know, he's a bit on the outside, but at the same time, we are supposed to kind of empathize with this or sympathize with him.
Right.
Because, that is a tough situation. Okay. So then and then it shows him being a comedian. He's like, by the way, I'm a comedian.
Oh, there's a couple things I wrote down that were more like time capsule-y stuff.
Okay.
He's wearing, so when he's kind of completed his transformation, he's wearing a This Is Spinal Tap t-shirt.
Yeah.
And he's like, hi, I would like to unblock MTV from my television. It's like, oh geez, MTV.
Boy.
Like nowadays that reference would be, I'd like to unblock HBO or something, you know. And then he's like, Woody Allen once said, and I was like, no.
And Bill Cosby also said, and Louis C.K., not famous yet, but he's so true. He's like my hero, Woody Allen. Of course, he was a dirtbag back in the day.
That's
too.
the thing. He was. I don't know if we're going to add anything to that particular situation, but
they bring it up in this film.
Yes.
So they show him being a comedian, and he's probably the least funny comedian. Like, this is a funny movie, but him as a comedian is just not funny.
There's like I feel like I've heard this rule before about writing comedy, where it's like don't show the comedy. So it's like, I don't know if you've ever heard of a show called Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip or something, but it was like this Aaron Sorkin show. Sorry guys, a little like nerdy digression here. But it was this show that was going to be about like writing Saturday Night Live. Yeah. But they framed it as like it was the best show on TV. And then they like show the show. Yeah. And it's like it wasn't funny. Yeah. And the show bombed, basically. Yeah. Compared to a show like 30 Rock that does the same thing. But it's like they're not trying to be like, we have the funniest show. They're like making fun of making those shows.
It's like, this is the worst show. Almost.
So yeah, kind of. Yeah. So it's bad when you're like, oh yeah, here's the stand-up comic. Seinfeld... I have my own takes on Seinfeld. I fall into the like Seinfeld isn't funny thing because every show after Seinfeld did it like differently, and I grew up on that stuff. So I'm not saying it's not a funny show. I'm saying I didn't grow up with it.
Yeah, stand-up comedy in film or TV has always been this tricky thing where like I think recently it's become like the example I think of is in the Louis C.K.'s show. Louis. Right, this is a Mormon podcast, right? So I've heard... No, I've
never seen it, so...
I have, and in this, they show his actual stand-up. Right. And it is funny. Right. I think what happened for the longest time was that, like, whenever stand-up comedy was shown, it was, like, written by a non-stand-up comedian, probably.
Like a show writer, basically, who's like, well, we got to throw in some jokes.
A script writer who's like, we need to show somebody doing stand-up comedy. And it's like, it's weird, because the jokes are, like, almost funny.
Yes,
But then the audience reaction is, like, disproportionate.
It's like an uncanny valley of jokes.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Because it's like, but, like, no, you know? Like, and he's not actually... It's not a real performance, you know, where he has to sort of like feel the ebb and flow of the room sort of thing. And I think you can sense that. Yep. So you get that sort of weird feeling as you're watching it. And you're just like, this guy isn't that funny, but I'm going to suspend my disbelief and believe that he is a successful, semi-successful stand-up comedian.
Right. So the plot basically goes, at first, you know, he meets up with his roommates who, they don't really have much of a history after this. They kind of all show up in various church ball, the home teachers kind of movies. Yeah. He's wearing this very fancy silver shirt, which never comes out again. Yeah. It's very weird. And they need a ride to the stake center. Yeah. So he goes to the stake center with these guys, and he's their only ride. And one thing I liked about this movie is that the setting feels really good. Like their house totally feels like a bunch of post missionaries in a house together. They've got like a motorbike in the living room and like random Mormon messages around the walls and like weird things.
Yeah.
And the movie definitely nails like the set.
Yeah.
It definitely feels totally authentic.
You've lived with your fair share of like post-mission.
Well, it really
house
feels
full of dudes.
It feels more like a mission house.
Yeah.
Like it totally
Yeah.
feels like to the bike in the living room kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Where you're like, this is just, it's got everyone's garbage from 20 sets of missionaries over the past 10 years.
Yeah. It does have that feel. I've never lived with roommates after the mission, so I can't tell if that's like a, an accurate portrayal. But it did remind me of like being a missionary and living with other.
And it's like the movie doesn't like point it out like, see, look at this. Like it's all in the background, which I really, to the movie's credit, like good job on that setting. But he's got to go. He drives to the stake center.
He has a beeper.
Yes, he does. He has a beeper. Another back to the 90s.
Because that's the way he gets. So he drops them off because they're like, he's got a gig. He's got to drop them off at the dance. But the beeper is what gets him into the church.
Right.
Which is like a huge plot point.
Yes.
It's sort of the inciting the incident that leads to the inciting incident of this film.
Yes. Because he's supposed to do a stand-up set later that night for like firefighters or something.
Yeah.
But there's been an issue. Someone bungee jumped a car off a cliff.
Whoa!
And he gets this phone call at the church.
Is that funny
and
or
it's
what?
like, yeah, some crazy guy bungee jumped his car off the cliff, and you hear a Wilhelm scream in the background and like explosion sound effects.
Yeah.
And it's like, so we got to cancel the gig tonight. So then he's stuck at the church. He doesn't have an excuse. So he kind of decides, all right, I'm going to go walk in and see what this is like. And he's kind of doing the like, I'm just going to sit in the foyer. Foyer? I don't know.
We are in Canada. We can pronounce it in its French proper format.
Foyer.
Oh, yeah. Hello, we are from Quebec. Just a little accent for you.
Yeah. So one thing I wrote down about this, there's a kind of a funny moment that is also emblematic of the time.
Yeah.
When he's sitting in there and these two guys walk past him and one's like, there's no way the Millennium Falcon could beat the Starship Enterprise in I don't know whether they're like in a speed race or something like that. And it's like funny because I go, that's right. There was a time where there was like beef between Star Wars and Star Trek fandoms.
Yeah.
And then the new movies all came out. And now it's like the beef is between the fandoms themselves.
Yeah.
Like within Star Trek, it's like, we hate the new movies. And it's like, we love the new movies.
True,
and
yeah.
Star Wars, it's like, I love the prequels. It's like, I love only the originals. And then it's like, like me, it's like, I love The Last Jedi. Fight me and punch me in the face. Okay, geez, I will die for that opinion.
Theo is very revved up right now about The Last Jedi. I was also going to say, too, that like it's sort of indicative of the time that like we're supposed to think that these two guys are nerdy.
Yes, they're
is a
great
dorks.
Point.
They're losers because they're talking about Star Wars and Star Trek.
Yeah.
Whereas like today, the whole paradigm has flipped and like it's cool.
Yeah.
Everyone loves it.
Yeah, I could totally be in like a church foyer talking about Star Wars and like no one would be like, oh,
they would join in.
Unless, of course, I was defending The Last Jedi, in which case I would be dragged outside, tarred and feathered.
Can we do an episode about The Last Jedi? Can we make some thinly veiled connection to The Last Jedi somehow? Hey, here's the thing. I think Mormon missionaries and the Jedi, there's a connection.
I'm going to just stop you right there. Okay.
Fine. Anyway, back to the Singles Ward, my new favorite movie. So that's like another indication of its time where it's like only losers. This is like a weird, not that I am like, politically correct at all. If I don't know if any, I'm sure I've offended many people thus far, but, I did notice that as watching this film, there's a lot of like sort of sharp jabs, like kind of mean jabs at like nerds, for instance, or like kind of the weird types of people in YSA.
Yeah, it's kind of some stuff that I'm like, that's like kind of mean. It's like, this girl's ugly. I'm like, I don't like that. I don't don't do that.
Weird,
Would you like put out a casting call? You're like, we need an ugly woman. Like that's so. I hate that in movies. It's just like
it's weird that it does kind of like it's this two-sided sword where it's like on the one hand, often in films when it's like, oh, we need someone ugly.
Yeah.
It's someone beautiful.
Yeah,
or it's like slightly less beautiful than
Ready Player One is the worst example of this, where it's like, oh, I never get to meet you because we're just online. And then he meets her in real life, and she's like, I thought you wouldn't like me because I'm hideous. And she has like a slight birthmark, and she's like this very pretty girl, and it's like, I'm hideous. And you're like, okay, come
disgusting.
on. Like,
but in this
really?
movie, they actually got some...
They got non-classically beautiful girls, I guess you would say. I don't want to... What, you know what? I'm married, and it's like...
They're not good looking. Some of them. Well, not that they're not good looking, but it's just like, these are average people.
Yeah.
These are just normal people you see on the train to
I feel
work.
like I need to correct... When I said I'm married, I'm saying that, like, I can say this about these girls because I'm not, like, on the market anymore.
You don't care.
My wife would agree if she watched this. She'd be like, yeah, those girls are gross. So.
Yeah. Your wife would be more, take it to the nth degree, I think.
She would. We're going to bring her on for a guest one day.
Yes. Once we get a third microphone.
Yep.
Yeah, so I don't know. Those were just like some moments where I was just like,
Yeah, it felt like unkind and just
a little
bad
unkind,
taste.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
And then there's this weird thing where they've got this friend who's like a black guy, which is cool.
Yeah.
One of two in the movie.
Yeah.
And they have this joke that's like actually kind of funny. But like, how does it go again? He's like, you'd see
yeah, so they're talking about a girl. Oh, right, because one of the jokes is that this sort of... It's a man, basically. A man is dancing with one of the main characters who's also a man. But the man is meant to look like a girl.
Right.
So it's like, this big chick wants me to dance with her. And so they're describing her, and he's like, think Johnny Lingo... Another reference. Think Johnny Lingo's wife pre-8 cows or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the black guy's like, Mahana, you ugly.
Well, I was thinking of the one where he's like, imagine taking one of these people to Southern California and like watching how they react to all the black people. And it's like a funny line. I can't remember how it goes, but he does make a funny joke about how white the movie is. And I'm like, I am kind of appreciative that he kind of pokes at that and is like, yeah, man, this is not a lot of representation here.
Yeah, I have a hard time believing he's from Utah even.
Oh, he doesn't act like it at all.
No, they've got him from California for sure.
Yeah.
I made a note of that, like, because it shows like a group shot of the dance, and they're all white people, and I just wrote down what was it, Utah so white. So yeah, it's interesting. And then I think it was like shortly thereafter that they introduced the one and only. He's really the only character. The only other black guy is
a cameo.
I think he's famous.
Yeah, he's a cameo. It says on IMDb. I don't know who he is exactly.
Yeah, but
yeah. So they have these introductions. They have these guys, and then there's this. I don't really. What happens next in this? There's a potluck.
Well, so then it's like the girl.
Oh yeah,
this is where like the plot starts to happen.
Right, he meets up with the girl, and they make the connection that she's the one who called him after they hit it off at the dance.
He's sitting on the couch. He's like, I don't want to be here. My gig got canceled. Then this girl comes out. She's pretty, and she's like, hey, do you want to come in and dance? And they have some banter. And then they're dancing, and they're kind of hitting it off. And then she's like, my name is Jeremy Giles. And he realizes that he like...
Yeah, it does the whole Jeremy Giles.
He realized that he told this woman to come clean his feces out of his bed.
No, he didn't say he
earlier.
Said feet. He said give him a sponge bath. Jeez, dude.
I don't know. I mean, he should have said that probably.
Wow.
I would have laughed a little harder. Just a little harder. And so that's the issue. And she's like, what's your name? And he's like, oh, and then like, big things.
He's like, I'm John. She's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
John. And then she
jokes
goes in the
happen.
kitchen and her friend's like, I can't believe you're talking to him. And then she realizes, oh, that's the guy that talked to me.
You son of a bee. And and then
Then she gets mad at him.
I have like this note in here about how I think she is unrealistically upset.
I think she plays this well. Because
so?
it's like she kind of comes across, which I like. She's like a very strong, independent woman. I know that sounds stupid to say that from a man, No one cares what I think about that. But like she's capable, and she's like, no, I'm going to stand up for myself and say that was inappropriate what you said to me. You didn't know me. That was like rude, and I'm not going to talk to you because you're clearly not a nice person.
I guess so, but it just came across as like they just wouldn't keep talking. But I mean, we're watching a movie. It's all, but it was just like, I don't know, like give it a little more playfulness. I don't know, but I guess I get why she would be upset, but it just came across to me as like this is not real.
Okay, a little over the top for you.
Yeah.
She does carry it on for a while. Like, most of the movie is him trying to get back into her good books kind of thing. Like, they have a ward potluck, and he shows up with some KFC chicken, which is kind of like played to be like, this is embarrassing that you would bring this to a potluck. But I think of the YSA potlucks I went to, and man, the bishop would be grateful if someone showed up without like a bag of chips. Like, you know what I mean? You'd show up at a potluck.
That's my bread and butter.
Oh my goodness, you were that guy. Oh no, it's a potluck. I better go run to the store and buy a bag of chips and stick it on the end of the table.
That's me, man. That's my ticket into eating all the rest of the food. This is a terrible podcast for me because I'm just revealing all of my worst, my worst qualities. I bring chips to potlucks, everybody. Sorry, not sorry.
I know I've skipped a bunch of stuff with my notes. I'm trying to remember. There's so many, like, it's so hard to remember all the little things that happen in this. But it's basically just them. What? Like, when does the FHE thing happen? Or when does the movie night happen? Is that before or after he goes to preference?
He goes to. It's before. Oh wait, no, it's after. It's right after preference.
Because there's I can't remember the order. So I'm just gonna say. There's a thing where she's locked out of her apartment, and so she tries to get in, and then this show that was filming that was basically cops is like, oh, this woman's trying to break in, and so they arrest her, and then Will Swenson was in the area, so he, like, bails her out, basically. He's like, oh, I know her, and they're like, do you have ID?
Yeah.
And that's, like, a bit through the movie.
Yeah, it's funny, and then they show the cop. I think the cops are funny. At first I was like, ugh, jeez, like, this is so contrived. It's just like a sketch break,
It is kind of like that.
It's like a cutaway, a Family Guy cutaway.
Yep. Well, they do that literally when they talk about the show. It shows them they're like in a parking lot and there's a minivan and they're like, step away from the casserole and get out of the minivan. You're like, oh geez, like
okay. That was pretty groany for me. But then like, when they actually came and they're like. Yeah, because she's trying to get back into her apartment, and then like the cops come and they're like they get her like detergent, her laundry detergent, and it's like, what is this PCP, boss? And then he like puts his finger in it, like puts it in his mouth. He's like, no, Tide. And I loved that line, and I loved his delivery. And I love those cops, Theo.
Okay.
Speak no evil of those cops.
I read trivia about one of the cops. I guess he was supposed to be in Pirates of the Caribbean 3.
Wow.
And then he was excited, so he jumped in his pool with his 5-year-old and broke some bones and was then not allowed to be in Pirates of the Caribbean 3.
Oh, no.
There's some fun IMDb trivia for you.
Oh, man. That's his... IMDb is kind of... like... reading the IMDb's of the actors in these movies is kind of like sad.
Yep. Yeah, because they don't. The only places they tend to go is like other LDS movies, basically. And it's fun to see them. It's like, oh, that's in the church movie, but like it's not. They don't really make it very far. The cop's name that broke his bones is called. His name in real life is Jimmy Chunga.
Weird name.
So.
Let's kind of blast through the rest of the plot of this film.
The only other things what else? They have this movie night where before that they had an FHE.
Yeah.
And there's this kind of funny bit where he's playing with this urn that's got the dog's ashes in it, and then he's like talking to this guy next to him. He's like, "You ever seen Meet the Parents?" Yeah. He's like, "There's this funny scene where they break the urn and it gets everywhere, and then he like." Drops the urn on the table and the TV turns on. It's like, the guitar. He ruins the moment. And
it literally
shatters
replays the same joke from... It's almost like this weird way to steal jokes is by referencing the joke and then doing it. And this film does that a couple of times. Like there's a Dumb and Dumber thing that they do, though they don't reference it with like...
It's not explicit, but it's very clear. the one guy's trying on mission outfits, and then
Yeah.
he's like, "Hey, look at me."
Here's suits, you know.
He
No,
gets
don't
the
like
craziest
this suit.
one, and
don't
then
like this suit. Oh, here's a wacky suit. Yeah, that's the suit. Yeah.
yeah, it's the exact same
It's like,
bit.
nice guys, nice. They're like, yeah, and that's a great way to be like, the Farrelly brothers, 100% are like the prime comedic, you know,
Inspiration here.
inspiration.
It kind of, you see that a little bit.
Yeah,
I do like the idea of this guy who's kind of been out of the church, and then he's like, "Did you see this movie?" And it's like, "No, I haven't." Yeah. Oh, and there's that funny bit earlier where he's like renting movies at the video store,
Yeah.
and it's like, he's like, "When I went hard." Oh, so I see we got here Halloween 1 through
Yeah.
7, Die Hard 1 through 3, and Newsies uncut.
yeah.
And that's the one he's like acting the most nervous about. I'm like,
Yeah.
Newsies is great. I don't know.
Just like
Well,
Newsies.
actually, I watched it kind of recently. Kind of dips in the middle.
does
It kind of
it?
drags.
Never seen it.
I love the songs.
I love me Christian Bale, so
He's great.
He's a great actor.
Yeah. What else? What other?
Cold take from Troy. Christian Bale, good actor. Steven Spielberg, good director.
We are just firing off today.
You want an opinion? Here's an opinion. Christian Bale, good actor.
Yeah.
Oh.
What are? I'm trying to like.
So I think like the main plot points, because so like plot wise, it goes from like, there's preference, which is a big thing where like, you know, the girl asks a guy in a creative way to go to the dance. There's like antics where they're like, you know, inhaling helium, and I turned to Theo as we were watching this movie, and I'm like, this is where the movie grinds to a halt for me. Like,
yeah, that's got to be the kids part.
it's
if
just,
anything,
you know, it's like one of our 8 montages of just like things. It's like, we're gonna do this montage of the thing happening. It's like, you don't need it.
It goes on for a while.
Too long. But
Kurt
like,
Hale doing his thing.
the movie's not even that long, but those are the parts that for me make it feel way too long. So then like he goes to preference with this again, like a girl who's like was cast for her kind of less than beautiful appearance, and it kind of comes across as like, oh, come on guys, like,
Yeah, it's not very
this
nice.
is a person. It kind of feels exploitative,
Yes, that's the word.
you know. And then they, you know, obviously, so this girl's kind of like a weirdo, and then he sees Cammie Giles with someone else, and then they go back to their apartment, and then they watch a movie. And
Right, and this is where a weird part happens, because someone knocks on the door mid-movie and it's like, "Hey, can you guys turn it down?" Oh, and there's this whole bit where he goes to the store to buy a TV, and this dude with a lisp is like, "This is the Typhoon 3000. It's got 65 picture-in-picture mode, and you're going to want this one."
So many bits in this movie.
So he goes there, he buys a TV. The neighbor knocks on the door while they're watching a movie called God's Army, which is a movie made by a Mormon, a guy who was Mormon, a guy named Richard Dutcher, and it's about missionaries. And this guy knocks on the door during the movie, and it's his neighbor saying to turn it down, and that actually is Richard Dutcher, who then tells them, like, "Oh, God's Army? Yeah, I didn't really like the toilet scene." Because I guess there's a scene where they're taking pictures of missionaries on toilets.
Yeah, I guess
I haven't seen it yet. I'm sure we'll get to it with
can't
this.
wait.
But yeah, so they're watching this movie, and there's a thing where this girl's like, because one of the roommates goes, "What? I used to take pictures of missionaries on the toilet on my mission." And like,
and she's like, I actually had a question for you about... Because she gets very offended, right? She's like, "I can't believe that." And then he's like, "I did that." And she storms out. And then her offense at this, I think I'm trying to think of like times in my life where I've encountered people who have been offended or would be offended by such a thing as that sort of irreverence. Do you think that's legitimate?
I think it's the thing that bothers her and that might be kind of legitimate is that he's got them in his mission scrapbook.
Right.
Like, to her, maybe she goes, "Look, if you took those pictures, fine. Like, you were a young, immature boy. But, like, why would you put them in your mission scrapbook with, like, care and artifice put into framing and cutting out and stuff like that? Like, what, do you have, like, a flower frame around this picture of a missionary on the toilet?"
And he's like, "I'll take it out of my scrapbook."
So it's like, maybe to her, I don't know.
Actually,
I could see someone being, like, offended by that.
I was just like, is this real? And I was like, yeah, I think I've met people like this.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Shout out to the guy who plays Hiram, this character. It's sort of like the the Chris Farley.
Yes, he
sort
does
of
look like
dude.
Chris Farley. Yeah.
He's a little chunkier, but he's like the funny guy. You know, it's like he's really kind of like Kevin James.
Yeah.
Sort of guy. He was quite good.
Will Swenson can't stop touching his face.
Yeah,
Touches
throughout
his
the
face
whole movie,
multiple times.
He touches his face a lot. I thought the tall guy looked like Nirvana's bassist Kurt Novoselic.
Okay, that is so nerdy. Wow.
He does.
Wow.
For anyone who knows the band Nirvana, you know, come on, back me up. It looks just like them. I think
Wow.
the film. I get okay. So like plot wise, the girl and the guy, they get together, and then they sort of hit it off. And then, she's going on a mission.
Oh yeah, that's a thing that happens.
Yeah.
When he's golfing, that's the golf scene.
Yeah.
So they make out at this movie night.
They make out.
They make out when he drops juice, and she like walks in and is like, "I'll clean it up," and he's like, "No, it's fine. It's my house." She's like, "No, I've got it." It's like, dude, it's my house. And then they start fighting and then making out, and then the tall guy walks in the kitchen to like tell him the TV's not working.
Chris Novoselic of Nirvana.
Okay. Yep. And he walks in. And he sees them making out, and he's like, "Oh, I guess it's going to be a while."
Yeah, and that was like act break sort of thing.
So then they go golfing, and there's this thing where these golfers are like, "Can we play through you?" And they're mini golfing, and he's got like a caddy, and he's like, "I think I'm going to need a putter." And you're like, "Yeah, okay, yeah." All right.
And I think that must have been some cameo.
Yes, it must have been.
You always know when there's a cameo because
it's always something that is like not.
It's not
necessary.
Inherently funny.
Yep.
But it's like if you knew who it was, it would probably be funny.
Yep.
And it's always, the formula is always the same. It's like show kind of a nondescript looking person doing a thing, and then cut to Will Swenson's character sort of reacting to that.
Yes.
And then, and for the audience, if you don't know who it is, you're just like, this is a really weird side turn for this film to take right now. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's a lot of those. That's like my other. I mean, it's fun when you recognize someone like Steve Young.
Yes,
he's the 49ers quarterback.
He says something about the marriage thing, a menace to society.
Yeah, if you're 25 and not married, you are a menace to society.
Yep.
Something to think about. He did a good job, I thought.
Yeah, he was funny.
Good delivery.
But they go golfing, and he confesses that he is, because she asks him, "So why aren't you married?" And he's like, "Well, I was married."
Yeah.
And then this frustrated me, because then she has this moment where he's like, "Well, I was divorced." And then her response is like, "Well, nobody's perfect." Or what does she say? Something like that?
Yeah, she says, "Well, nobody's perfect, John."
I was like, "What are you saying?" Like,
it was meant to be like a nice, like his reaction to it's like, "How nice."
Yeah, he's like, "Wow, I was shocked. I expected judgment, and I didn't get any." And I was like, "That sounded pretty judgy to me." I don't know. Maybe we've like changed, and maybe that's where they were in 2002. That would be the non-judgy response.
He should have been like, "What do you mean by that?" Yeah, it's almost like he could have flipped it on her. If this were 2018, he could have flipped it on her and been like,
"What do you mean? My wife like left me."
Yeah,
like it wasn't like the movie clearly shows it wasn't his fault.
Yeah.
And I'm not like trying to weigh in on that kind of doctrine or whatever, but like, weird response.
Yeah, it was a little weird.
But he responds well to it, and then I guess their relationship progresses.
Yeah, they start
montage.
dating. It shows them holding hands. They're together.
Yep.
Another montage. My favorite thing in this film.
And it kind of breaks down because he goes to do a comedy set one night.
Yeah.
And she's there.
Yeah.
And he starts bombing.
Yes.
Which is like, I've had the thought I'd like to do stand up one day, but like the thought of bombing like that is like, it is scary.
And he bombs because he's making fun of cigarettes.
Yeah, he's telling clean jokes, which I was like, the look on the crowd's face when he's like, "I don't know why they don't just build nuclear cigarette factories next to nuclear plants so you can get your treatment and your cancer from the same place." And I'm like,
I was like, that's funny.
That's like kind of funny. Even if I was a smoker, I'd probably be like, smoking kills you. That is a fact.
Not these snowflake smokers over here can't take a joke.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
They're just growling.
Yeah, so then he like turns to like making fun of Mormons, and then they love it, and then he's like leans into it.
Yeah, and like, what did you think of his anti-Mormon set? I'm doing this in
funny.
air quotes. They're not like,
They weren't like offensive, really.
No, like what does he say? He's like, I'm a Mormon. I don't know, the one about like they're making an X-rated film, no sex, just guilt. That one I was kind of like, yeah, it would be kind of like
I laughed.
Like, yeah, I mean,
and then like
your mileage may vary on that stuff, but the stuff before it was totally fine.
Yeah, I remember the thing I wrote down with that. It was like, wow, these are like seething indictments towards the church.
Yeah, they're definitely...
Like, they're not. They're just, little... But she got very upset by this, right? His girlfriend, who kind of secretly watched him do this.
And it kind of makes sense because she's coming from it. In their first interaction, he kept on saying things to her. Yeah. And then when she didn't react well, he'd be like, I'm just kidding. Right. And then she was like, okay, is that what you do? You just say something, and then if it doesn't go well, you just say, just kidding. And I'm like, that's like some life advice right there.
Yeah.
And so she kind of outside, she's like, it's not so much the jokes, it's the fact that afterwards you're like, what? It's just a joke.
Yeah.
You're like, you can't even see why it might be offensive to me.
He's like, why do you take it so seriously? And then she's like, why don't you take it so seriously? And
yeah, it's like, okay, yeah, fair enough. Like,
good point, lady.
Like, I didn't think the jokes were that offensive, but she did, and he should at least not be like, what, can't take a joke? Like, that's super rude to do that. Yeah. So she is upset, and she's like, oh, and this is the moment where she's like, they're crying and fighting, and she's like, I put in my mission papers. And it feels like a scene in a movie where someone would be like, I'm pregnant or something. It is like this boom.
Just the way she says it like, I put in my mission paper. Yeah, like, I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
And and it had that sort of bombshell sort of thing. Do you think they have chemistry? Do you think it's like a believable chemistry?
I do. I think that sometimes it's more believable than other times, but sometimes I was like, I don't know if I'm seeing it right now. But I think there were times where it was believable, especially when he's in the nursing home and he's like doing stuff with the old people. Like, she definitely looks at him with kind of a longing that's kind of sweet.
Do you, does this ever happen to you where you're watching a movie and then you realize you're watching a movie, and because you have now realized that you're watching a movie, you're like, ooh, something that they did sort of takes you out of it and like reminds you that you're watching a movie.
I've had that before, but I didn't really have that in this one.
I think that's what happened to me. I was just like, are they like, those are two actors acting?
Oh, I see.
Instead of a couple. And again, so many montages, and then they sort of break up. He goes on the road. She prepares for her mission.
This is the one stand-up joke that works for me, is that he goes on this tour of universities, which is funny because they don't give you the impression he's like a famous comedian, but he gets like a big ovation, crowded house at the University of Missouri.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, well, first thing you should know, I'm Mormon. And everyone's like, ooh. He's like, so before you want to burn down my house and run me out of town, my car's out back. You can get to that and steal all my stuff. And I'm like, that is really funny. Like, that is... I think that's great.
That requires a knowledge of church history.
Yes.
And
it's like the only audience where that would really play super well, especially if they were familiar. If they didn't know, then they'd be like, what? What do you...
that whole joke was based on, and there's a few church history jokes which are among some of my favorite.
That's one of the jokes he tells that offends her. He's like, they're making a Mormon version of Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. It's called Seven Brides for One Brother. And I was like, that's kind of funny. I don't know. Yeah, sure.
No, it was funny. Sure.
It's fine.
And then he makes a Martin Harris joke or something. I kind of liked that.
Oh yeah, he's like, one thing I've learned: if God tells you no, don't keep asking. So Martin Harris had to learn the hard way, or something like that. And you're like, but the way,
hey, church history.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then they sort of break up, and then he gets with like this other girl who's sort of like the temptress throughout the whole movie, and then she's like, when do I get like a private party or something?
Yeah, she's been asking throughout the thing, like, when do I get a private set?
Yeah, we just introduced her now, but she's been there the whole time. And then they go back to her apartment, and presumably...
which is delightfully set as this like super new agey like Japanese ornaments and trees and stuff everywhere. It's like the settings are definitely on the nose on this, but that one did make me laugh.
Yeah, it's like it's like anything new age or is like not of God. And then so her apartment is supposedly right across the street from the Salt Lake Temple.
Yeah, she's like check out the balcony. It's got a great view. And then she goes and brings him to the window and opens the window, and it's like the temple right there.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I don't know what her end game is here, that she starts out the scene being like, don't go churchy on me. Here, let me show you the most important building of your religion.
Yeah. Yeah, she's like, she triggers him, right? And
yeah,
then she's
the
like,
camera does all these zooms and like,
yeah. And then she's like, I can't believe this. Why are you feeling this way? And then he leaves, and then he has like a come to Jesus a moment in his car at night, and he kind of has a big turnaround where he's just like, I want to come back to the church and everything, and then he's sort of like talking to the camera again, and this music is playing. It's very dramatic and everything, and then they do this great like a record scratch, and then his buddies are over in the corner, and they're like, "Who are you talking to, bro?"
The music starts playing like literally a seminary type song from a seminary DVD, and they're like, sounded like you were doing a seminary video or something, and he's like,
were you crying? No. I don't think they said that, but I think they should have. So yeah, I think, and so just heard that honk.
I hope that didn't
it's on there. Yeah, and then he goes to the airport. There's a whole other montage.
Right, they race because he finds out that his girlfriend hasn't left yet.
Yes.
That she's about to board the plane to go to the MTC, and he's like, I'm going to go talk to her. I'm going to go propose to her.
I've had a change of heart. I'm going to propose.
And in a very pre 9/11 thing, he races through security
like it's nothing.
The day planner guy, the tall nerdy guy, throws his binder over the metal detector, and the guard's just like, huh?
I don't care.
And then the other guy, the bungee jump car guy, who's like covered in tattoos and piercings, is like, whoa, hold on there. Like he gets flagged, and they scan a nipple ring with the metal detector.
Yeah.
Anyways, he races through the airport to go say goodbye, something you can't do anymore, unless they've changed that recently. But like he gets there and he walks in line and he's like, listen, I've made a huge mistake. I would like to marry you. Well, he greets her parents and
and you made a good joke about like the Muppet. Like there's a guy behind them who's basically one of the old man Muppets.
Yeah.
He's just like, this movie sucks. Like, what are you doing? Get on the plane.
Yeah, it's like, this is taking too long. And he's like, excuse me, just one moment. I love you. He's like, she's going on a mission.
Yeah.
There's plenty of girls out here. He's like, well, I'm trying to get this one. He's like, how old are you? Seems like you already missed that opportunity.
Yeah, just these harsh judgments on him.
Yeah.
So then she's like, I gotta go. And then she goes on a mission, hard cut. One mission later... And then it's a fake out.
He's waiting for a missionary, but it's the guy that went to Boise. It's Kirby Hayborn.
Hey, Kirby Hayborn.
Who we'll talk about in our next episode about the RM.
That's right.
Do the deep dive on old K-Hay.
Curb. And then, so then basically the movie sort of finishes up with like, they do get together, the guy and the girl, and... guess what? He's the Elders Quorum president. Guess what? They get married.
Yeah.
Guess what? She's Relief Society president.
Can they do that? Can you be Elders Quorum and Relief Society president in the same couple?
I know that you can't operate on your wife if she's the Relief Society president.
You can't operate?
that's like...
What?
Sorry, that was a joke.
Okay.
Like a doctor can't operate on his wife.
My goodness.
This is my wife!
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay.
A brain teaser fun for you there. Oh, we have fun here.
We do. Oh, yeah, that's right. There's the whole... Speaking of urban legends, there's a whole thoroughfare through this movie where there's like this bit where they constantly will say, yeah, didn't you know that so-and-so was a Mormon? And then one of the guys is like, are you serious?
Are you serious? Yeah, they keep saying
Which is another product of the times, because nowadays people would just be like, I don't believe you. And they like pull out their phones and Google it.
Yeah.
So a lot of those have been killed. But I mean, it's funny to hear the story of they didn't attack the sister missionary because there were 3 burly men standing behind her. I was like, never change, urban legends. I heard that on my mission.
Never change.
But yeah, that's basically...
that's the plot. I have one kind of question.
Okay.
I want to ask you. I saw this thing recently where it talked about the difference between satire and parody.
Okay.
Where they sort of defined satire as something where it takes on the form of a type of film or whatever that it's trying to copy, or an idea. But the way that they do it is such that it's sort of it's sort of refuting what the initial property is, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So I'm trying to think of a good example of it, but it's something. We can cut this down later. I'm actually trying to think of a good one.
It's a satire movie. The ones I think of are the musical ones, this is Spinal Tap, or most recently Pop Star, Never Stop, Never Poppin'.
See, here's the difference though. When they talk about parody, a parody.
Oh, that's true. That
takes
is
the
a parody.
form, but it's it reinforces. It is in favor of the thing that it's doing. So something like Spinal Tap is it's taking the form of a documentary and it's sort of lampooning rock and roll, but ultimately it's sort of a love letter to rock and roll.
Yes.
Whereas a satire is saying the example that I saw was Watchmen, which
is that another a satire.
It's taking superheroes and it's taking them and saying the idea of superheroes in general is crazy and it could never happen. It's kind of dangerous,
Some that I can think of is Tropic Thunder.
Yeah. Is
a satire of war movies and such.
Yeah.
Doctor Strangelove, really old one, but that's kind of another one.
Yeah. So hopefully we've established the difference between satire and parody. Parody being something that's in love with the thing it's making fun of. Satire is an indictment against it. What do you think this movie is? Okay,
I would say this movie is cultural homage. I don't know if that's a thing, but I don't see it as parody or satire really, because it's definitely not tearing down. It's pointing out funny, weird quirks of our culture.
Yeah,
but it's doing it mostly lovingly. It's not doing it in a way that's this is bad or this is dumb. Yeah. It's this just is how it is kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't see it as doing really either of those things. Another movie we might get to later, there's one called Sons of Provo, which does kind of it's more of a parody satire kind of thing of documentary kind of stuff. But I don't know. I don't know if this really, I would call it that.
You're right. Because it's not really borrowing the form of anything else, but unless just comedy in general. But it does sort of reaffirm. It is a morality tale ultimately, and it reaffirms the morals that the main character was originally questioning.
Yeah.
And I remember watching this movie initially and sort of analyzing it and thinking, and I mean, this is sort of the central plot of the film. So, and sort of the character arc for the main guy. But I just thought can we have a movie? Because I think the RM is sort of about this too, where it's it's another morality tale where it's he has to choose between good and evil, the church or something else. And I was just can we just, I would love to see a Mormon film where it's the beliefs and the loyalties of all the characters are just assumed. And there's some other thing.
Oh, okay. So it's, I mean? It's not a movie about people reconciling
struggling
with their faith, maybe.
With faith, yeah.
Maybe it's a movie just about members of the church and then just something that happens and the way they experience that.
Yeah.
But then I guess whatever character arcs they're going to overcome or go through is going to have to be something still interesting.
Yeah.
And I guess it's kind of, I don't want to call it low-hanging fruit because not a lot of people are making movies about this kind of stuff.
Right.
Religious people going through crises of faith or coming back to faith.
Yeah.
Other than the Mormon film industry or the Christian film industry kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's not common. So I think that's what people have experience with in the church, and that's what they gravitate to. I
don't know if you've seen this movie called Silence.
Love Silence. Just saw it a couple weeks ago. It's
very good. It's
yes.
It's like the Apocalypse Now of
I didn't make that connection, but yes, it is kind of.
It so much is.
Holy smokes,
there's a Kurt's character, you know, he's kind of going up the river. Things are getting crazier and crazier. Yeah. It's long.
Charlie does not surf in Silence, for sure.
No.
He gets Charlie crucified in the ocean.
But an that's another film that directly sort of deals, a weird connection to make, but both of these movies deal with finding your faith or so reconciling your faith.
Troy, on the record, your take is that the singles word is the silence of Mormon cinema.
Yeah, it's like the Martin Scorsese film of. I don't know about that. Well, but similar issues, and and I don't know. I think I remember at the time, and I still think this now. It's just like, I don't want to be bogged down with this guy's financial faith crises. I don't know.
It's, of the movies we've got on the docket, I think there's some that don't go this route.
Okay.
One of the ones I'm aware of is called Once I Was a Beehive, which we're going to watch. It's on Netflix. And as far as I know, that one, I don't think it really gets into this stuff. Yeah. But maybe it does. So we'll find out. But
so anyway, that was...
that's the singles ward.
That's it.
We kind of wanted to start with it because in a way, I feel like this movie started out all the other kind of like the other movies. And what time are we at here? How much time do we have to kind of post-mortem this thing?
We're coming up on 2 hours.
2 hours.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, no one will ever listen again. No. But I just wanted to kind of go over the critical reception to this movie wasn't great. In fact, the Deseret News did not give it a very good rating themselves.
What did they rate it?
I'm on Rotten Tomatoes. I have the critics rating here. Let me see. Where'd it go? Jeff Weiss said, "A word of advice to the makers of the singles ward: celebrity cameos do not automatically equal laughs, and neither do cliches, no matter how inside they are."
I would agree.
So
I would agree.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Interesting thought. I think it's fine. The movie, it came out in February of 2002. Mm-hmm. And just to kind of give you a little bit of wet your whistle as far as if you're going to the theater that weekend in Utah.
What were we going to see?
What were you seeing in that date? February Box Office Mojo. We got February 1st. Okay. Black Hawk Down. It's in its sixth week, and it is number one.
Oh, yes.
This February, so you're not really releasing it's kind of just all the Christmas movies hanging on.
Right.
Snow Dogs, A Walk to Remember, The Count of Monte Cristo.
Good movie.
A Beautiful Mind. Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring is hanging on there. It's in its seventh week. Okay, actually, this is interesting because one of the movies on here is a movie called Orange County. You ever seen that?
Yeah.
That's another movie that's kind of one of those, like, because when we were talking about that, I was like, the only other movie I can think of that's wacky like this is Orange County. And that came out, around this time.
Things were changing with Orange County, though. I feel like that was sort of
it's a little bit more nihilistic and stuff like that. But Royal Tenenbaums, Wes Anderson's on the upswing here. And Ocean's 11. Anyways, maybe that. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. What a different time at the movies here.
Star Wars would come out later in the year.
All the franchise movies, and it's not really fair because this is February, so a lot of these movies are in like their 12th week. The movie's opening this weekend is Slackers and Birthday Girl, which I've never heard of, and those are like in 11th and 12th place. Like nothing's opening huge, but and an interesting time in America's cinema. This is
truly
February 2002, back to the 9/11, 5 months after 9/11.
Yeah.
So this is still a little fresh.
That's interesting. Yeah, because it was late 2001 when that happened. So
yeah, that was September. So interesting things. Look, everyone if anyone has stayed this far,
thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thanks.
Next week, we're going to do the RM. We're going to do some deep dives into Kirby Hayborn.
Kirby.
Talk about the beer commercial.
Yes.
The famous, didn't he do a beer commercial?
Yeah. We'll answer that question for you.
We will. But, I guess we'll catch you on the other side.
We'll catch you on the flip side. We have really no way yet of feedback. But you know what? For now, that's okay.
You can
just call us. You probably know us if you're listening to this.
Yeah.
Thanks, and we'll talk to you later.
All right.
Bye-bye.